Hello everyone! Well, in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to display data stored in a metadata table in WordPress. This goes for both front-end and admin, okay? Keep that in mind for your upcoming projects. In this lesson, we will limit ourselves to displaying data in the admin in the backend. So let's start by opening the file with the HTML of the Metabox. Well, what we need to do here is to fetch the value from the database and pass it to the value attribute of each of our fields, right? We already know how to get values from the database. For this, we use getPostMeta. We've already used that function in the savePost function to get the value from the post variable right here. And I will show you guys two ways to do it. Then you can choose which method you think is better, okay? I'm going to create a variable here called meta, and I'm going to call getPostMeta. First parameter is the post ID. As we pass the post object as a parameter to the add-inner Metaboxes function, we have access to the global post object in here, and I can retrieve any value related to it. To get the post ID, I pass it like this: post arrow ID in uppercase. I can call my fields just like that. For you to understand better, I'm gonna do a var dump in this variable here, and let's see what we have inside it. Check it out. I have an array with some elements, and each element of this array has a key and a value. This is equivalent to doing a select in the database and fetching all metadata from a specific post, except I didn't need to run a SQL command to do this. What I can do is open PHP here in the value attribute and do an echo. And I use this echo to show the value that we want. For that, I can do the following in the case of the text link. That's because inside this array, I first get the key, and it is an array too. And then I get the value, which is at position 0 in this array, which is the key itself. Here for the URL, I repeat this and change the value of the key. The other way to do this is to create a separate variable that will hold the value of each key, of each field. For example, I'm going to create a variable called link text. Then I call getPostMeta. Post arrow ID, and here I can directly grab the name of the key like this. And the last parameter, I set it to true as well. This value here would only be false in case this key had more than one value in the table, right? Remember those serialized values I showed you earlier in the course? If that was the case, then the output, the result, would be an array. But for now, that is not the point here. I'm not going to try to explain too much about this because that would make things very complicated. And I can do the same thing to get the value of the other key. If I do a var dump here in both variables, so let's see what comes out. Look at this, only the value of the keys is returned. In this case, let's go back to the code. And I can simply do it like this here in the value. So then you can go ahead and choose which solution you prefer to display the values in the fields, okay? The drawback with the last option is that I had to create two variables. And in the first approach, the problem was that I called all fields at once and had to indicate the index of the array here in the echo. Well, all is good, but it's still not safe. There are two problems here with this code. The first is that the value of the fields which come from the database are not being escaped. This means that if some attacker managed to inject some malicious data into the table, we'll be displaying those values in an insecure way. Remember the example script from our previous lesson? The second problem is that if I call the value of the variable like this, it will cause the problem if no value is stored in the table yet. That's because the variable value will be null, empty. Then of course you see a PHP warning on your screen, which is not nice. So let's tackle the first problem. WordPress has a number of escaping functions for strings. They are ask.html, which is used whenever you need to escape content that is inside HTML tags, but it may appear in other usage contexts as well, since it is the main WordPress escaping function. Ask.url, which is used whenever you need to escape content that is a URL, of course, including those passed to source, src, and href attributes. Ask.js, which is used for inline JavaScript. Ask.attribute or ask.attr, which must be used for all attributes of any HTML tag. Remember that this only applies in cases where those attributes are dynamic, okay? For example, when you have information coming from a database or when they are the results of a function, if it is just static HTML text, you don't need to use it. And the last in the list, ask text area, which is used for text areas with more than one line. So here in the first field, since the value that's coming from the database is just an ordinary string, I can wrap it within ask.html. And here, as I have a URL, let's use ask.url. You could also use ask attribute in place of ask.html at least, since value in this case is an attribute of an HTML tag, alright? And the two functions, ask.html and ask.attribute, are nearly identical. So the important thing is that you don't leave values unescaped. We will get a chance to use these functions several times later in this course, so you'll have time to get used to them. Well, now let's solve the second problem, the one of the null variable. This is quite easy. You just do a check like this. This is our ternary PHP operators, okay? For those who've never seen a block like this, it's a kind of simplified if-else block that you can write all in one line. This means that if the value of this variable is set, if it's not null, I'm gonna display its value. Otherwise, colon, I pass an empty string. All this is within an echo command. Let's do the same thing for the other field. And that's it for today. The next lesson is the last one in the section on the subject of metadata. So, see you there. Bye bye.